All right, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, I'll be talking about how to get good grades in school. Now, this is a subject that is extremely near and dear to my heart because I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've been on the side where I have not gotten great grades, and I've been on the opposite side where I've gotten great grades. And I finally figured out exactly the formula for you to get good grades in school. So I'm going to try my best to break it down in this video. But before we do that, I want you to picture this. All throughout school, you've been doing amazing and everything has been going to plan. Graduate high school as your valedictorian, you have some of the top grades in your class, not to mention that you are the president of your school and a student athlete. I mean, at this point, school was basically on autopilot, everything was pretty straightforward, and you never really had any trouble with school. Now, fast forward, you get accepted into a good university, you start going to your classes. The workload has definitely picked up from high school, but at the same time, you understand that this is nothing that you can't handle. So then your first midterm rolls around, and you do what you normally do to prepare for all of your tests like you did in high school. You study for around 2 to 3 days typically, and you'd get a good mark, or so you thought. Because after I wrote that physics exam, I completely bombed it. And then on top of that, later on I had a calculus exam, chemistry. The same cycle continued. I mean, I wasn't getting grades that I have not seen before in my life, and it was really destroying my confidence. I lost a lot of faith in my ability to do well on tests because I simply didn't really understand how to get good grades in school. Now, this was my story, and especially when I started off at university, fast tracking to now, where I really feel like I have a good grasp on how you can get good grades in school. And I really wish that someone broke this down to me before I started, because this would have saved me a lot of headache. So again, like I mentioned throughout this video, I'm going to try my best to outline how you can get the best grades in school. Now, it's important to understand that not getting the best grades is pretty common among many university students. I mean, this is why many businesses and tutoring services even exist, because they all understand that getting good grades is what a lot of students want, but it's also difficult to achieve. But they forgot to tell you that there's actually a system to getting good grades, which is number one. And number two, if you haven't gotten good grades up to this point, doesn't mean that you're not smart, doesn't mean that you can't do it. All it means is that you haven't figured out how to do it within the context of the school system. So my goal is to just outline the best way I know how to do that for all of you. Okay, so the first thing I want to highlight and mention is the importance of getting organized. Organization, especially to do well in school, is paramount. And as you pursue higher education, your ability to stay organized is going to be paramount to your success. So I like to outline what I do for my organization, and this is really translated to me being very on top of all my work. So what I do is I take that course outline or the course syllabus and I put into my calendar every single date of every midterm, assignment, test. So I am well aware of when all these things are happening. On top of that, I also like to put the percentage of how much all these things are worth. So I'm well aware of what I should be focusing my time and energy on. For example, if you have a midterm that is worth 30% versus an assignment that's worth 2%, you should know that you're going to be spending a lot more time and effort understanding the context and getting ready for the midterm versus that 2% assignment. And being organized has also helped substantially with just being aware of when all the deadlines are occurring, so things don't just randomly pop up on me and I'm feeling overwhelmed. Because quite frankly, your teachers give you well in advance of when your exams are, when you should be preparing. So it's really up to you now on this point to stay organized and know when things are. Systems of organizations change. Like I mentioned before, I use apps like Notion, but at the same time, there's things like Google Calendars, there's physical pen and paper. But whatever you do to stay organized, make sure you're logging in and you're well aware of everything that is going to be happening throughout the entire semester. The next thing that you're probably not doing or not doing well enough in order to get really good grades in school is not using enough active testing strategies. So this is a mistake that I made, especially within my first year. When I started preparing for a lot of tests and exams, I would write out a ton of notes and reread textbooks, thinking that that was an effective way of studying. And this didn't really come clear to me until I understood that I was spending so much more time than some of my peers on my work, but I was getting worse results. So the best way that I can highlight this is, let's look at two students. You have student A and student B. Student A studies for 16 hours for their upcoming test, while student B prepares for 8 hours. But then consistently, when we look at the grades between student A and student B, we find that student B does a lot better than student A. Now, this was mind-boggling for me to understand because I always believed and thought originally that the more time I spent on my work, the better my grades would be. But this could not be farther from the truth. See, especially in higher education, you need to understand that it's not so much about the amount of hours that you dedicate to your work. It is the quality that you implement within those hours. So when we look at the student A versus student B example, student B probably spent more quality time doing their work. And then this goes back to these active test strategies. So what does this look like? Well, taking practice tests, teaching your friends and peers concepts, going through mind maps without looking at your notes, but just off the top of your head, what do you recall? Writing it down, trying to draw connections to the course material. creating your own practice questions, and there's so many more active testing techniques that you can implement. But these are all active strategies that will really help reinforce your learning versus rereading the notes, highlighting. These are typically passive strategies which don't help you learn much better. It's very surface level. So once I understood the importance of doing active testing strategies, I then realized that active testing saves you so much time, especially later on. So not only are you getting a higher yield for your study time, but at the same time, you are saving time while you are studying, which to me sounds like a win-win. Another thing I want to emphasize is when you are learning, especially at a high level, the process should feel uncomfortable. Like if learning is super easy and there's really no friction to your learning, typically what I found is it's pretty surface level, so you're not diving deep into the content, or you're just staying on things that you already have a good understanding on. You have to remember that the process of learning involves you taking knowledge, understanding that knowledge, and then filling in gaps that you have. And then once you fill in those gaps, you find other gaps in your learning, and then you try to fill those in. And it's this cyclic process that really never ends. So I hope you understand to do active testing strategies, active preparation, especially for your learning. Now, another reason why you might not be getting the best grades that you want in school is that it probably is not that important to you. Now, let me elaborate on this. For example, if I told you that in order to keep your close family members alive, you need to get a 90% or above in a very difficult math course, by the end of the semester, I am very confident that you would obtain a 90 or above, especially if you really cared about your family members. This has nothing to do with whether or not you are good at math or if you can get a 90 plus in a hard course. This has everything to do with your level of care. You wouldn't want someone you love or someone you care about to be hurt. Therefore, you would do everything in your power to make sure you get those high grades to reach that 90 and above threshold so that your family members are safe. See, when you attach a very strong meaning towards your education and what you're doing, you are so much more likely to be fully immersed in your learning and then as a result get better grades. A really good example of this is typical pre-med students. Students that want to go into medical school typically understand that in order to get into medical school, they need good grades. So as a result, they do every single thing in their power they can to get the best grades possible because they know that if their grades aren't good enough, they're not going to be able to enter into things like medical school or other professional schools. And this goes back to then attaching a very deeper meaning into their education. So the problem that you might be having is that you may not be associating too much care into the school or the classes that you're going to. And trust me, I know what it's like to go to classes mindlessly and not really feel too immersed in that material. And I saw this a little bit with myself, especially within first year, where some of the classes I was just like, well, what's the point of me learning this? Once you start to have that mindset and that mentality, it's very hard to do well in those classes because you've already told yourself mentally that you're checked out of it. But then on the flip side, I found that the classes that I was extremely interested in, I saw purpose for my future, I was really immersed in the content, and it really helped me do better in a lot of my courses. Now, don't get me wrong, this is nuanced. Sometimes you will really enjoy a course and you may not do as well as you had hoped. But from my experience, it's a lot easier to do well in a course where one, you associate a high level of meaning. So you understand, you know what, I may not like this course that much, but it's super important to get me to where I need to be. Or two, you actually do enjoy the course. So you're more committed, you're more immersed in the process. So I'm advising you as a student to really find some deeper meaning to your education. Find a deeper reasoning as to why you should be fully immersed in the process. What I've done recently is, as a lot of you might know, or some of you might know on this channel, I really like entrepreneurship. It's something that I like to study on my free time, read books about, and just learn as much as I can. So I've shifted my mindset from just doing school to treating school like a business. Every time I do well on my exams or my tests or I prepare, this is me doing well in my business. And what this has allowed me to do is to take full accountability and responsibility of my actions, but at the same time, I see a higher level of importance. Another thing is that I'm also slowly working towards a career in medicine, so I do understand the importance of getting good grades, especially in those classes that I may not like as much. So I want you to associate a deeper meaning to your education. Show up with more intention, and trust me, if you try this, like actually try this, you will then see better grades and better results in your test scores. Another thing that you can do is convince yourself that getting good grades and getting good test scores is like currency, so like money. So every single time you get closer to, 100%, you're getting more money. But play around with this idea and try to attach a deeper meaning to your education. Another reason why you might not be getting good grades in school is because you do not have a deep understanding of the course material. I know this might seem self-explanatory, but let me elaborate a little bit deeper. When you get into higher learning like university or college, in order to do really well on these tests and exams, you have to have a deep level of understanding for the subject matter. Typically in high school, you can have a pretty surface level understanding of what the knowledge and the content that you need to know and still do pretty well. But now in university, you need to go even deeper and dig further down that rabbit hole. You need to fully immerse yourself in the process. What I found with myself personally is when I was in my first year, I was tricking myself into thinking I was prepared for a lot of my tests. I would study pretty hard, or so I thought I knew everything, and then when the test came, I got the mark back and I'm like, dude, this is terrible. The problem that I kept facing was I was just understanding my content at a surface level. You have to dive really deep. And another important thing that I missed here was I wasn't filling in the gaps in my knowledge. And I think we can all relate to a few examples of when we're trying to explain a concept to a friend, and as we're explaining it, we're stuttering over our words, we're not quite clear on how to actually go about explaining it. That is a sign that you have gaps in your knowledge. And once you start to understand the process of learning, all it is learning a concept, trying to get really good, testing to see if you know it, and then you'll find a few gaps in your knowledge where you get questions wrong. So then you go back to those gaps, you try to relearn the knowledge, refill in those gaps, test yourself again, and then fill in other gaps that you probably got wrong again. And you keep doing this iterative process over and over and over again until you feel really comfortable. I'm talking very comfortable that you know the testing material. So another good way is working in a group with friends or teaching your concept to a close classmate, because when you start to explain concepts to your friends or your peers, you then really quickly identify what you know and what you don't know. And then once you figure out what you don't know, you need to go back, study, and go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I really hope this makes sense, because once I start to implement this really helped me get better grades and not trick myself into thinking I knew the material when I actually didn't. Another good resource is talking to your friends or close peers, because all of your friends and peers have unique perspectives on the course material. So you might understand topic A really, really well, but topic B and C, you're not the greatest, but you might have a friend who really understands how to do topic C and is struggling in topic A. So then you can use each other to deepen your level of understanding with the course material. So the next reason why you might not be getting high enough scores in a lot of your test material or just in school in general is the fact that you lack the ability to focus. Now, focus is a very interesting topic, but if you want to do good, especially in school, you need to be able to focus, especially for a prolonged period of time. You'll be surprised how many times I've been in lectures and look to my left or right and see people who are not focused at all, whether they're on their phone scrolling social media, online shopping, doing something completely away from what the professor is saying, and the list continues. This is a clear sign of not being able to focus. So if you're not able to focus, how do you expect to do well when it comes to, taking tests or going through the course material? I dropped a full video on how to really implement more focus within your learning, but practicing this is so crucial, especially if you want to do well in school. You need to be able to sit and focus to better understand your lectures and the course material, and what that will do, it will translate to you doing better in school. There's been so many times where I've sat in on exams, especially in my first couple years, where I was like, you know what, if I was better at my ability to focus, then as a result, I would have got better grades on the test. But what's really good about your ability to focus is that it's something that can be developed over time. And again, if you want a further video on this topic where I dive in a little bit deeper, check out my video. I'll link it in the description where you can see how to really improve your level of focus. So the last reason why you may not be doing as well as you hoped in school is that you might lack the ability to stay consistent. I think we all know that consistency compounds, and if you want to get fit, you want to go to the gym, you need to stay consistent with your diet, with your exercise, and your routine. The same applies to school. It is no different. You need to show up every day, go to your classes. Consistency beats motivation time and time again. And it's super important to stay consistent, because motivation is based on your emotions. One day you might feel extremely motivated, extremely excited to do school, and then the other day you may not be feeling that inspired. However, with consistency, you show up regardless of how you're feeling. And trust me, as someone who's went from, not getting the best grades to getting a lot better in school, I realized how powerful consistency is, because consistency allows you to just work on autopilot. Make sure you show up to the library consistently, make sure you're studying consistently, make sure you're giving yourself enough time to practice questions consistently, and the cycle continues and continues and continues. And something that they don't teach you or talk too much about in school is that forming good and bad habits is pretty simple. Forming bad habits early on, especially within the semester, will trickle throughout the entire course, and they'll become very hard to break. But on the flip side, if you form the right habits early on, they become solidified, and it's a lot easier stay consistent throughout the school year. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you got some value. If you're in a position where you're not getting the best grades, trust me, I've been there before. It is not a great feeling, but you can get out of it. Try these steps, implement them throughout your own learning, and let me know how it goes for you. Another really important thing is to always believe that you will achieve. I understand that school can get tough at times. There's going to be highs and lows, but you need to keep showing up for yourself every single day and believe that you can get good grades, because I know you can. Trust me, you wouldn't still be watching a video like this if you were not capable of getting amazing grades. So I'm rooting for you. I wish you all the best. Make sure to always believe that you will achieve. My name is Miles, and I'm signing off. Woo!
And if you enjoyed this video right here, I think you're gonna love this video over here. So I'll see you over there. Peace.